Thank you, Commissioner Gale. Today, we welcome a special guest speaker. Her name is Colonel Carol Mellon. Happens to be the mother of one of our 7th grade English teachers, Mrs. Fields. Colonel Mellon
Hi, Blizzard.
is a retired Air Force Reserve Chief Flight Nurse with 24 years of active military service. She has over 2,000 flying hours as a flight nurse, including 22 combat flying hours. She entered the Air Force after graduation from nursing school and spent 2 years at Shepherd Air Force Base in Texas. When her tour was up, she had a 12-year break in service before joining the Air Force Reserve in 1987. She is married to Jim Mellon. Her family moved to Maryland when her daughter Jessica was 6 years old. While in Maryland, she joined the Aeromedical Evacuation Squadron at Andrews Air Force Base. In 1990, she deployed to Saudi Arabia for Operation Desert Shield. Her last assignment was Chief of Aeromedical Operations, 22nd Air Force, Dobbins Air Reserve Base, Marietta, Georgia, from April 2001 to January 2009. In that position, she was responsible for 10 aeromedical evacuation squadrons in the eastern United States, ensuring peak combat readiness for over 1,000 aeromedical evacuation personnel. She was the critical subject matter expert in all areas of nursing and aeromedical operations. In 2005, she deployed to Ramstein Air Base, Germany, in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. Colonel Mellon has earned a diploma in nursing, a BS in healthcare administration, and a master's degree in public administration. She has been awarded Outstanding Air Reserve Technician Officer in 1999, Meritorious Service Medal with 3 devices, Air Force Commendation Medal, Air Force Outstanding Unit Award with Valor, and Small Arms Expert Marksmanship Ribbon. The Mellons moved to Valley Forge, PA in 2011 to be near Jessica and grandsons John and Reese. They currently travel extensively and enjoy their retirement together. At this time, I am pleased to welcome Colonel Carol Mellon.
So many of you. Thank you for that warm welcome. They say when you're going to be a public speaker to start with a joke. Well, I don't remember jokes, so I asked Google a joke this morning. So it says, why shouldn't you write with a broken pencil? Because it's pointless. Obviously, when you stand up in front of this many people, you get a little nervous, so please forgive me for that. I wanted to talk to Mr. Webster's comment about when people tell you thank you for your service. It is humbling, and it's an honor. It's a privilege to put on the uniform, and every time you put the uniform on, you're wearing America. You're representing America. So it says a lot. Anyway, so I wanted to tell you about when I was growing up. My father was born in 1921 during the Great Depression, and he and his twin brother joined the Navy in 1940 just to get a paycheck for the family, which is the reason why they happened to be in Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941. So at the ripe old age of 20, my father was a combat veteran. My mother worked for Bell Bomber Plant in Marietta, Georgia, and that was the precursor to the Lockheed Martin. And during the World War II, it's considered 11% of the population, 11% of America served in the US military. But everyone else either was working on a US government contract, or they were filling a job for somebody who had gone to deploy to the war, or even if they were just using rationing. Some food products were rationed, gasoline was rationed. So it truly was the greatest generation, because every single American was involved in the war in some way. Fast forward to now, 1% of the US population serves in the US military. And it's estimated that the majority of people don't even know anybody associated with the military. By show of hands, raise your hand if you know anybody that's serving in the military or has served. Wow, that surprises me. Okay, most of you, that's great. The family is very important. I grew up as number 6 of 7 children. There was a culture in the 1950s. It was patriotic, it was service-oriented, and so it was just, serving was just part of it. I was very normal. I was very average. In high school, I played basketball and softball. I had a boyfriend. I went to the prom. The difference in me was at 7 years old, I decided I was going to be a nurse when I grew up. And I was goal-driven for my entire life. When I graduated high school, most of the boys were concerned with whether or not they were going to be drafted to go to Vietnam. I went to nursing school, and I just wanted to serve. So in May of 1973, I joined the Air Force. I wanted to be a flight nurse, because that was better than working in a hospital. So they told me that the POWs had just been released, the war was virtually over, and I would never get a flying assignment. So I did my 2 years in Wichita Falls, Texas, and then I got out. Went home as fast as I could. I had a 12-year break in service before I found out that the Air Reserve component flies 95% of air medical evacuation. The Air Reserve component is the Air National Guard and the Air Force Reserve. So I joined the Air Force Reserve. My 6-year-old daughter just took all this in stride. I went to flight school. I knew how to be a nurse. They were going to teach me how to be a nurse at 35,000 feet. When you're flying in an airplane, any long distance, everything you need to take care of every patient has to be in that airplane. So we spent the next few years training. We trained in medical issues, in services, on our medical equipment, patient care, emergency patient care, aircraft emergencies. This is when I was in survival training. We had chemical warfare training, both air and ground. We had drill weekends. This was the air chemical warfare training. This was what the inside of our airplane looked like. We stacked litters, maybe 4, maybe 5 high. We had to do escape and evasion. This was part of survival. We were having to crawl on the ground under the barbed wire. The water survival training, they dumped us out of a helicopter and we had to get into the raft. That was the C-130. We had to learn 3 different airplanes. The C-130, the C-141, and that was the 141. The one time I shot expert with the 9mm. And that was part of the aircrew chemical warfare training. Not sure, that was carrying a litter patient off the airplane. And these bags on the side, that was part of our medical kits. Late one Friday afternoon in August 1990, a friend of mine called on the phone and she said, "Captain Bellum, this is Captain Maddox. I'm calling to ask if you would like to deployed to an unknown location for an undetermined length of time. And that's all I can say. So I said, yeah, Vanessa, I've been watching CNN. I see that Iraq has invaded Kuwait. Sign me up. So within a week, I was gone. What they did not train me in was how to leave your 9-year-old daughter. And that was the hardest thing I ever had to do. Jessica was the only third grader whose mother went to war. There were other kids whose fathers had gone. Poor Jim didn't know what he was getting into because Jessica's third grade teacher, Mrs. Morgan, called, and she asked Jim to please send Jessica to school about 15 minutes early and to tell her to come into the teacher's entrance. Jim didn't know how to make a ponytail. So Mrs. Morgan was fixing Jessica's hair. That's a good teacher. So that was Desert Shield. This was my crew in Desert Shield. We didn't have a lot to do during the build-up. The kind of patients that we would have would be appendicitis or heart attacks or sports injuries. So we had a lot of free time. So we trained. We had to re-inventory our kits and practice our medical equipment and CPR and all of just more training. We did get to play when we were not training. We had time for fun. And if I can, that's our practice on CPR. This is how the patients were brought out to the airplane on what we call an ambulance, an ambulance bus. That was my squadron at Andrews. That's where I was, Riyadh. This is where I lived. This was Escon Village. It was, I guess, better than a tent. What I'm looking for is my picture of Halloween. We had a Halloween party. My costume, I was a care package. There I am. And we were having fun at this Halloween party. And when I got home from the party that night, there was a letter on my bed. And I still have that letter. Because if it hadn't been for some really good friends of mine, I would have gone AWOL that night. Basically, the letter said, "Dear Mommy, I miss you so bad. I can't drink anything because every time I drink anything, it comes out my eyes." That like to kill me. So then was Thanksgiving. That was part of our Halloween party. One of my colonel bosses. Sorry, I'm trying to go to the next slide. Anyway, so this was Thanksgiving. We actually got a mission the day before, Wednesday. It was like the first time I got to fly. So we had to fly from Riyadh to Dhahran, which was about a 45-minute flight, but they said find your own way back home. Well, we knew that there was a delicious Thanksgiving dinner waiting for us, so we found our way back home. But that's when we realized that the people we were deployed with were our family. They're the comrade in arms, they're the people who believe the same way you do, and they're substituting for the families that you're missing back home. So next was Christmas. And this being a volunteer deployment, and it was still a build-up, the big brass did not know when the war was going to start, Desert Storm. So rumors were flying rampant. First, we were going to go home tomorrow, and then we weren't, and then some of us were asked to stay, and then we were told we would all have to stay, and then somebody came in and said, on December 1st, they said, pack your bags, everybody's leaving tomorrow. So then all of a sudden, I found myself back at home with my husband and my daughter, and I was going to send my friends back home, my other family, back in Saudi Arabia. I felt really bad because the war hadn't started, and I missed it. So the only way I can describe that was you give up your life for the unknown, for a cause you believe in. You develop a comradeship with other people who did the same thing. You feel a void for each other, becoming the family you both left behind. You live a standard most people don't understand. Training for a job you hope you never have to do. And then praying you do it right when it comes right down to it. So once life got back to normal, I decided that I kind of liked this Air Force Reserve and I wanted to make a career of it. So here I was at the age of 40, I went back to school to get my bachelor's degree. And then a few years later, I got my master's degree. And in the meantime, I did the military courses, Air Command and Staff College and Air War College, because I knew if I wanted to make colonel, there were certain squares that had to be filled, and I wanted to make sure that I made colonel. So then I volunteered to go to Iraqi freedom. Oh, there's my little 9-year-old. And my husband and my parents. Then I went back for, I volunteered to go, that's my bachelor's degree. I volunteered to go back for Iraqi freedom. At this time, I went to Germany, and we'd leave Germany about 6 o'clock at night. We'd fly into Iraq. We would take the cargo off the plane. We would put the stanchions up and drop the straps and make it our hospital into the cargo ship. And then we'd take our patients on, and hopefully we'd take off before sunrise and head back to Germany with our patients. I did make colonel in 2005. And oh yeah, that was the write-up when I made the officer of the year. This was one of my promotions. When Jessica was in high school, of course prom was on drill weekend. So I told her she was absolutely not allowed to leave for the prom until I got home from drill. And I wanted to see how pretty she was. So there's one picture that's my sister. She didn't go in the service. She was an Atlanta police officer for 30 years. That's my promotion to colonel. I did get to meet the vice president. That was going to Iraqi freedom. That was Germany. And these are just some of the pictures of some of the places I've been. Greece, Japan, England, Italy. This is the picture that I cherish most. Because this tells a story of a lady who grew up in the shadow of a military mom. She's dressed to the nines, and I'm in my flight suit. This was our life. Now, I think we share a unique bond because we know what it feels like to be separated by war. So, my motto was, a girl's gotta do what a girl's gotta do. But the point that I want to drive home is that people in the military are special people, but so are their families, because the husbands or the spouses and the children and the parents and the aunts and uncles, they have no choice over the decision that military person made. Most of the time, the military families go unnoticed and unacknowledged. So when Jessica can use my military discount when she's shopping, good. I agree. If you see somebody in uniform, take the time to look them in the eye, shake their hand, and say thank you for your service. Reach out, touch them on the arm, say you're home. It means a lot to a lot of people. In closing, I want to say thank you for your attention. Thank you for your open celebration of Veterans Day. Thank you for honoring me today. I wish the best for the future for each one of you. And I would like to say that the military is not a bad life. If you are considering a life in the military, do your research. It may be worth it for you. Finally, I want to offer one pearl of wisdom. Don't be afraid of failure. Be afraid of not having enough faith in yourself to try.